Okie dokie. Let's start with some pictures. These are pictures that I took on my latest trip to Scotland. Never been to Scotland before. Never been to Europe before, but I had to take a flight over the Atlantic, of course. This is in Scotland.
I love that. I love that picture.
Okay, good. Yeah, I love the castles. Boy, at first we were like, oh my God, a castle. And then after a while you're like, okay, got it. But they're all beautiful and they're all different. And it's kind of, everyone there has an opinion about what a castle is. It has to be a certain age and it had to have been used for defense. But a lot of these castles aren't the original castles because these guys were masons. They were part of a mason guild. They could dry lay these rocks. Okay, so these giant castles that are 3 stories high, there's no mortar between the rocks. So if they want to remake the castle like Legos into something else somewhere else, they just take it apart and put them somewhere else because all the time and labor goes into making the sides of those squares, sides of the stones flat. So it's quite useful for them. As you can see, the dark tones aren't going to show up well on this projector, so that's just what it is. All right. This is that same castle from a different view. This is the oldest castle we saw. This one is from 1100 AD from Vikings that came over to Scotland. And they came and put the castle right here because this is a great place to launch a boat from. It's nice and protected from waves. This is the North Sea.
Louder, please.
Say what?
Louder.
Louder. Oh, sorry. Louder. Okay. This is an abandoned church along our way. This is the North Sea over here. This is as far north as you can get in Scotland. After this, you're just looking at islands, and then the North Pole's like right over here somewhere.
Is that Orkney Island?
As a matter of fact, it is. It's one of the Orkney Islands. There's like a dozen, but yeah. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Oh my God, so amazing. This is the Atlantic as opposed to the North Sea. The Atlantic also. This is on the island of Skye. A sunset shot. This is a trail we went down to go to a fish farm, fish ladder location on a stream so that the salmon could go upstream and breed. A lot of northern Scotland was barren like this. It looked like I would expect Iceland to look. And there was a lot of snow. Even in August and September, there was just snow everywhere. All the way down to like 1,500 feet, too.
So it was cold?
It was, the highs in the day were maybe 55 in August. It was quite refreshing, actually. This is these blue clear waters with the coral and the white sand. This is all on the Atlantic side. Of course the water is frigid, but it's just spectacularly beautiful. Very few tourists. We did not see many people.
What kind of camera were you shooting with and what lenses were you using?
I have a Canon 60. Wow, boy. I shot with a lot of lenses. I have a 14, a 16 to 35, a 70 to 200. Those are my main 3. This is probably a 30 millimeter, be my guess, based on where I was standing. And I probably shot this with the 70 end of that 70-200. We did not see many sunsets or sunrises there because it is cloudy a lot in Scotland. This is a barley field overlooking the North Sea. The North Sea is over here.
That looks like the 14.
Like the what?
That looked like the 14 millimeter that crop.
Oh, it could have been. It certainly could have been. I used it a lot. This is an old castle here, and there used to be a bridge that went from here over to this cliff over here, some huge bridge, from like the 1300s too. It was crazy. And of course it got taken apart and rebuilt into another castle and then taken apart. And this one had been taken apart and rebuilt 4 times. Okay, they used the bridge as part of the new castle, so whatever. That's how they do it. This is next to the Isle of Skye. This is Applecross Pass,
Love the light and the clouds.
fjord. Some of these are tidal and some of them are locks, and you got to look to see if there's a tide margin to figure out which are which, because some of the locks come right down next to ocean level. But every once in a while, you get this really unusual situation where you'll have a lock, which isn't attached to the ocean, and then you'll have an inlet, which is attached to the ocean, and the lock will be just like 50 feet above the ocean, and they'll both be almost the same color, but you'll look at them and say, that's not the same height. And then when you get closer, it's obvious, but from further away, it's
So how did you make that panorama? Was it one picture or a number?
I don't remember. Which one? Oh, that last one.
Just the last one?
Yeah, that was multiple pictures. That was like 13 pictures.
13?
Yeah,
Oh,
because
wow.
I wanted to be able to just blow it up if I wanted. You can see the individual rocks on it. I turned the camera up so that it was portrait, and then just swept it.
Also, that way your background doesn't get pushed so far off as it does with a wide angle.
Exactly, and I get higher resolution, and I just love that 70 millimeter lens. So anytime I can use that 70 millimeter lens, I like to pull it out. This is Loch Ness, where the monster isn't, but anyway. And it's a beautiful loch, and it's the second largest lake in Scotland. This is looking out towards the Atlantic. This is a tidal inlet. That is also about a dozen shots put together. It was so green there. Oh my God. It was like sponge when you walked on it too. And all this becomes peat later on, which they make into scotch. So it's real spongy and organic. And then it just breaks down and becomes coal, basically. It's like low-grade coal after a couple hundred years. And that's the peat that they burn.
On those panoramas, Harry, do you know what lens you would have used?
That's 70.
That's the 70.
Yeah, I like using that 70. It's so sharp. It's pretty spongy when you walk on it, I'll tell you. There are places there in Scotland that get more rain than this island. Over 300 inches of rain a year.
Wow.
More than Hilo by far. Almost 3 times Hilo.
But up at my house, I get 200 inches a year.
So they get 1.5 times that? Some of the places, not all of it.
Too much.
Yes, I waited for like 5 minutes for the light to be just right. My wife's like, it's so cold, can we go? And then finally she just gave up and said, I'm going back to the car, I'll see you there.
That shows the tides.
So this is along the northern coast of Scotland. This is on the North Sea. And these towns were so interesting. All the buildings looked like they were company buildings. They were all built the same way with the same windows and the same doors, and very, very few people. Like something out of a zombie movie where you look around town and there's no one there and you're like, whoa, what's going on? It was weird. I assume there was a large fishing industry and the North Sea's just been fished out. That's my guess, but I don't know. But all the people that we talked to in Scotland said, oh yeah, the North Coast is very somber. Everyone up there is very quiet and dour. I'm like, okay. But it's dramatic, beautiful, and dour. This looks like something out of a romance novel in England or something.
Yeah.
So there was a guy standing right next to me right here, and he had a big old camera with a big old lens and a tripod, and he was out there shooting too, and I'm like, this is amazing. And he's like, where are you from? And I'm like, where are you from? And he's like, I live in that house right there. Huh. He's like, yeah, well, we love it here, so we come out and take pictures all the time.
Looks like Hawaii.
Looks like so many places. Looks like Colorado, looks like Hawaii, looks like Iceland. amazing, amazing place. This is fun. I can convert linear to polar coordinates. It's available on PhotoPaint or Photoshop, that's it. I used it on the GIMP. And what you do is you make an image that's like a panorama, and then you change the aspect ratio so it's like 1:1, so a square, so everything's squinched up and down. Then you just tell Photoshop to convert to radial, so it changes the geometry and makes a little world image. And there's lots of YouTube videos about how to do it. It's a lot of fun. Some of these tombstones were from 1100 AD. And this stone here that these sheep are rubbing up against because it feels good is from 6,000 years ago. So people have been living there for a real long time.
And the stone was erected by people.
There's a bunch of them. Yeah, there's a lot of these standing Stonehenge type things.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I just threw a couple in here at the end that are from Ithaca, New York, which is where my kids were born and I met my wife. I went back there on our way back from Scotland just to say hi to friends and finally take some pictures because I didn't have a camera when I lived there.
It does look similar.
Oh,
I was there in the autumn, which was really nice.
Are you using any HDR here?
Excuse me?
Are you using?
Oh, I am. I'm using a form of HDR that lets me take pictures of moving things too. It's a Magic Lantern. It's a firmware that runs on Canon cameras that lets you do alternating scan lines so that you can do, I think I shot this one at a combination of 50 and 800 ISO. So each scan line was either 50 or 800. And then the software assembles it all in the one image later on.
the geology looks unreal.
Yeah. It's recently glaciated from the Laurentide Shield, so the relief is dramatic because it's only at 10,000 years to weather. Same thing in Colorado, too. It's all from recent glaciation, so everything's very steep. Sunset. Well, this is a trail I used to walk up all the time when I was a teenager. I lived down at the bottom and I worked up at the top, so I would walk up this gorge every day.
Some of your work looks really reminds
That's
me
it.
of that artist that paints cottages. What's his name?
Kincaid.
Kincaid. Reminds me a little bit of Kincaid work. In a nice way.
Be careful.
I think it's just you don't like Kincaid.
I actually do like his stuff, but it gets a reaction.
Yeah. I like
So I'm going to go through and process one photo. Maybe if we have time, I'll get to a second one, but I don't know. I mean,
Go for it.
I'll do it until you guys are bored of me. But I thought you'd like to see how I think when I do a photo, because everyone does it different, and there's a place where it seems like it's common among people, and then there's places where you get to make choices, and I guess that's where the artistic style comes in. My style is in flux. My pictures look different now than they did 6 months ago. They look different than a year ago, too, and I'm okay with that. I think it's actually good. So anyways, here's a variety of pictures. Let's see, there's a castle, there's morning sunrise in England, woods, a sheep, Ithaca Gorge, I don't know. Let's call it something.
Gorge.
Which one? This
one?
one?
No, the next one.
This one?
To the left, isn't it?
To the left?
Right.
That one.
This one?
That one.
Done. Yay. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what I call normalizing the picture, whereas I just make sure that I get rid of the noise, I straighten it, I do any keystoning that needs to be done, I make sure that any major changes in luminosity, bringing out shadows, knocking out highlights, highlight reconstruction if there's some blown out areas, things like that. And then I get a picture that I can work with because everything's just at a good starting point. So I'm going to do that. I'm also going to check my green levels. When I check colors, one of the things I like to look for are there are some basic ratios, like plants are usually 2 to 1, yellow to green. So you got 2 yellow to 1 green. Places that are more blue, like these, would probably be a little less than 2 to 1, and places that are really yellow here would have a little more yellow. I work in something called lab, which is luminosity and A channel and B channel. And I will show you that in just a second. I set this up so that when I sample an area, I'm sampling a region instead of a specific pixel, so that I can look at the middle. Okay, and so I'm going to just take this whole area here, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, and see if I'm around 2 to 1. And if I look at this, gosh, I wish I could see that better. It says like minus 1 and 9, is that right?
Minus 10 and 9. Minus 10.7 and 9.6.
Okay, so that's about even, green and yellow. It needs a lot more yellow. Okay. And this area here, what is it, 14?
14.
Okay, yeah, that's even too. So we know we need a lot more yellow. So I'm going to go to my, sorry about the mic. I'm going to go to the white balance here, and I'm okay with my green levels. I don't want them to look too luminous. So I'm going to worry about my B channel here, which is the yellow-blue channel, and I'm going to move that to a warmer, which is more towards blue, more towards yellow, away from blue. And I'm going to pick a region here and watch it change as I move that. There we go. Okay.
Minus 9 and 11.
Minus 9 and 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
Minus 6 and
Minus 6 and 20. Minus 6.
Oh, see, I got ahead of myself there. It turned out a little yellow, didn't it?
5.5 and 20. Yeah.
Hey, that looks pretty good.
Minus 7 and 17.
Yeah, bingo. All right, that's a good starting point. It gives me something if I don't have a gray card to, as a reference point. People are always warm, so your A channel is going to be warm, your B channel is going to be warm, but their complexion varies greatly as to whether there's more of the A or the B, but it's never cool. So if either of the channels are cool, something's wrong. The sky is always about half as much red as blue. It's never blue. There's a couple of real easy things to, that you can look up on the internet and find that really help you key in if you're not sure what was going on because it was cloudy. In this case, it's a gorge, so light's bouncing in the gorge. So who knows what color it is, right? Because this gray is going to cast a hue. All right, enough of that. Let's crop it and rotate it. It definitely needs to unrotate this way. I'm not going to worry about keystoning because I want to move along a little faster. But that looks a little better. And I'm going to crop this top part out because that light just doesn't help the situation.
Yeah.
And it's confusing. Oh my God.
Whoa!
That's hysterical. Okay, I didn't expect that.
It's fun.
All right, well, let's see. Let's look at, we got a rule of thirds going on here that helps, you know, I want to complete this view here a little bit. Maybe something like, I'm just going to have to suck it up and do it, whatever. Okay. All right.
Get the guy out.
No, I'll leave him. I got other fish to fry here. One of the things I like to do with every image is apply a Gaussian blur just to the color channel alone. And the reason I do that is even if there isn't noise, when I go ahead and start expanding tonal regions, I don't want to introduce noise. So if I just make a Gaussian blur of 3 pixels, let's see. I'm sorry. I wish I could read better. What does that say?
3 pixels.
Thanks. All right. What that does is it, let's see, I'll put it on, it is on uniformly. It's just on the color channel, that's why. Okay, here we go. All right. Now you can see just the color channel. And when I apply this Gaussian blur, it kind of smears the colors a little bit, but it's okay because the edge detail information is in the luminance channel almost exclusively. But what this does is it pretty much gets rid of all color noise there is. And when I make other changes to the image, I'll get these nice smooth transitions. So I do that, and when it says blend mode, I only apply it to the color channel. There's a lot of things I'm doing here that are in Darktable, but there's corollaries in Lightroom, and a lot of the same theories apply. There's two things you can only do in the images in RAW format. One of them is chromatic aberrations. I think that's true with all RAW image processing programs, so always take advantage of that. And another one is raw denoise, which is a more powerful denoising tool than other denoising tools, so always take advantage of it if you can. The tools I'm going to use to give the effects I want are going to require a lot of midtones. They kind of eat through midtones to create regions. You only have 10 stops to work with. You only got from white to black, and you got a lot of information you want to convey, so you got to decide which regions get priority and which ones don't. One of the things I want to do is give a little more information here in these shadows. So I'm going to bring up those shadows a little bit, but not much. I like to use tone mapping to do that. And the way I apply it is with something called a parametric mask, which is something I wanted to show you here. It operates on different channels. I'm going to use the luminance channel. And when I use this luminance channel, I'm going to apply this. There's a yellow mask indicator. Okay, now the whole picture's yellow. It says that I'm applying this effect to the entire channel, to the entire picture, but I only want to apply it to the darkest parts of the image. So if I use these sliders, I can select just the dark parts of the image. And when I select just the dark parts of the image, I'm going to reverse it. There we go. I can take those areas and apply this effect. I'm going to smear it a little bit so that I don't end up with halos. And then I'm going to take my distance here, because I think that 30 is ridiculous. I'm going to bring it down to around 6. Turn off my mask indicator. And then I only like to use tone mapping at 50% because it just looks stupid after a while. It looks like a circus. And then I'm going to attenuate the effect with the amount of compression I use here. And I can use the same tool for blown out highlights too, to bring in a little bit more detail. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it on this projector. Without it in this area, and with it. Now we got some detail showing up. Now I got something I can grab onto, and I can use my tone curve to bring it up. Before I used the tone mapping, it was actually outside of the region, and applying the tone curve wouldn't help me at all. So I want to push tones towards the midtone. Like I say, I'm going to use a lot of midtones. So I'm going to do this reverse S shape here. And I want to make a very flat image. So my colors are right. We checked them with the green level. We applied that Gaussian blur to the color channel to reduce noise. We did chromatic aberrations and raw denoise to reduce noise. We've moved our tones towards the middle. We've brought out some of our shadows. So now I'm going to flatten the image by saving it to a 16-bit TIFF. And what that'll do is two things. One is it'll make it so that I don't have to do all this calculating again whenever I refresh the screen. And then another thing it'll do is it gives me a starting point from which to use my toning tools. My low-pass filters, it gives me a starting point for my low-pass filters, and I don't have to worry about where they are in the pixel pipe, whether they're before or after my tone curves and my tone mapping. It starts me from scratch again, which is really nice. And 16-bit TIFFs are really nice to work with. I suggest using them even if you start with a JPEG. If you take a JPEG, apply a slight Gaussian blur and noise reduction to it and convert it to a 16-bit image, then when you work with it in Lightroom or Photoshop, as you increase the sky contrast, you won't get as much banding.
You won't get as much what?
Banding in the sky, especially since Lightroom works natively with floating point arithmetic and 16-bit images. All right, so here we are, we got our flattened image. One of the things I like to use for my own sense of art is to isolate the size of objects with low-pass filters. And this is basically a Gaussian blur. If I apply this just to the L channel, which is the luminance channel, it looks like this. Here's just the L channel. See, if I turn it all the way down, you see it looks like a black and white. And if I go all the way up, it's all fuzzy, okay? One of the things I can use it for, which I don't need on this, is I can make it very large like this. I don't know if anyone's ever done this, but I like it. You can make it very large, and then you can change the blend mode to overlay. So now all the places that were dark and all the places that were light, you can reverse your contrast and use it to bring out your shadows and bring down your highlights. See how nice and smooth that is with no lines? By using this Gaussian blur. So without that, just on normal, you see it's the reverse of what it was. And if I turn the contrast the other way, that's the way it was natively. So that's a cool trick for if you've got areas that are bright and dark and you're trying to equalize them. So anyway, by size. I apply tones by size. And I look at the size of the object I want to emphasize, like these steps on this waterfall, but I don't want to get lost in the individual rocks and droplets. So I pick a size that emphasizes that tonality, and then I emphasize that by applying a soft light filter. And this is a filter that's common to any program. It's a mathematical operation. You can look it up on Wikipedia. Soft light and overlay and screen and multiply are all logical operators that work with different masks. So I use soft light for tones. Here's how it is without it. It looks kind of flat. And then with it, it brings out shading in that size. And then I attenuate the effect by using the blend percentage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply multiple versions of this filter with decreasing size of objects. That first one was the most macroscopic. That looked at large-scale objects. I'm now going to look at a little bit smaller object and apply the same filter a second time. All right. A little bit finer detail. Once again, soft light.
Can you show us the before and after?
Yes.
You know with that step?
Sure will.
What's that pink thing on the wall?
It looks like trash. Let's get rid of it.
It's on the
Spot remover. There we are. All right. There. Good eye. Thanks. All gone. All right. So before and after, we've applied this effect twice. This is before, and this is after the two of the effects. Okay. Here, I'll do a little slidey thing.
What's the IQ requirement for this?
Well, what I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping to excite some people here and then do a series of 6 workshops, one-day workshops for free, and just have people get together and do Darktable together. That's what I'm hoping will happen from tonight. And that's why I brought these USB drives. You guys can try it at home, and if people want to do that, we can set up some times. So here's the before and after.
That sounds great.
Harry, does this update on Windows?
No.
No?
No.
No, you plug in the USB drive and it basically.
But I can play the USB drive. Right?
Yeah, it runs on Mac though, and it's free. So you can use it on a Mac.
Oh, the USB drive won't run on a PC?
No, the USB drive doesn't care what computer it's on.
So
But Darktable is available for Linux and the Mac.
So she's asking if she could do this on a PC?
She can do it on any computer, doesn't matter. Computer doesn't know if it's a Mac or a PC, just the software on it knows. You can run Mac on anything. I don't know if you knew that, but you can. Okay. All right, let's apply that again to another smaller size one more time. I want to bring out these columns of water here, right? I mean, those are pretty. Oh, darn it. I wish I could see better.
So how do you bring them out?
Here we go. By emphasizing this size right there, right? And we'll apply that with a soft light. And then we'll use the opacity to attenuate the effect. This is none of it, and this is all of it. So I'm going to go for right about there because I really like it. All right. As a matter of fact, I like that so much I'm going to do it again. Hey, this is where the art part comes in, right? You can do whatever you want. It's your photo.
It's the
There
end
we go.
result that counts.
The end result is I had fun. The fun part is the good part. Soft light. And there we go. Okay, now when I zoom out, you're going to see we have way too much contrast because I've gobbled up midtones by using these soft low-pass filters. See? So we're going to have to do that reverse S thing, curve thing again, which is the opposite of a contrast curve. A contrast curve would go something like this. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to go down, and we're going to go up. And we're going to get it so it looks nice. And then we're going to sharpen it, and then we're going to add some color, and then we're going to be done. All right. I like to sharpen using high-pass filters. And the way I use a high-pass filter is I use the sharpness and the contrast in combination to come up with, if possible, just white and gray, without all these different shades of gray. See, when you start off, it's got all these different shades of gray. I don't want that. I just want the edge. And that's it. So I make it so that I try and just get the edge. I don't want to lose it by making it too light, but I don't want all those other shades. This one I still have 2 shades of gray, but where it's better. So I've got a lot of edges, and I don't have all that middle information because that would just make it look too busy. So I apply edges with overlay as opposed to soft light, and it always comes on too strong, so I have to turn it off. Turn it down some, right around there. That looks good. So that's it without it, and that's with it. Right about the middle. That looks good, right there. All right. Now when I add color, I don't like to add color to the whole image because that'll force some of the colors out of gamut. They'll just be too much, oversaturated. So what I do is I use, yet again, another parametric mask. This one I do on the chromacity channel, which is how much color an item has. So if I take these sliders and move them over, I can adjust it so that it applies applies the effect based on how much color the item already has. Now I want to apply more of the effect to things that don't have much color and less of the effect to things that do have more color, so that things that have less color kind of enter the party and be there with everyone else. So these parts here that are light are getting less of the effect. I'll turn off the mask, and you'll see that those places that are getting less of the effect were also these ones that are basically gray and don't have much going on in them. All right, I'm going to steepen these A and B channels, which are the difference between blue and yellow and the difference between green and magenta. And as I steepen those, it does 2 things. It separates channels, which separates items, makes the image easier to understand, and it also increases saturation. So I'm going to do that for the whole image. Now don't forget, this is preferring items that have less color already, kind of equalizing the amount of saturation. I did not apply a Gaussian blur to this one because I'm doing it just to the L channel. I haven't touched this, just to the A and B channel. I haven't touched this L channel, and we already applied that 3-pixel Gaussian blur to the A and B channel when we did it to the color channel. So I don't need to blur this mask in order to get good effects. I won't get any halos. Now I can safely increase color to the image as a whole, and the way I like to do that is using that same 3-pixel color map that we use to make everything smooth, and just taking it and increasing the amount of saturation in it. And I can safely do that without having some of the colors go ballistic on me because we did all that prep work. I'd like for this image to pop a little more, especially in this corner. I'd like to see some kind of evidence of sun or something. So I'm going to do what I call an artificial sun up here. I'll just take a drawn mask and apply a little bit of a gradient effect this way. See, if I turn on the yellow, you'll see how it's going. It looks like that, okay? And I probably want it to be more like, there we go. All right, I'll turn that off. Now, I'm going to brighten it just a little bit by steepening my tone curve. Make it look a little brighter up there. And if it's sunlight, it should be a little more yellow too. But I want to be efficient with color, so I'm going to see what colors these are. So I don't apply yellow to everything. I just apply it to the greens that I'm working with. And there it is. Here's the median value, so I'll increase that a little bit. And that gets a little sunlight pop there on top. And now we're going to increase local contrast, and that's the last step. And that's done with a tool here called Equalizer, and it separates local contrast based on size of elements. Once again, we're thinking about in terms of size. Like these are small, and these rocks are bigger, and then like the difference between the stream and the walkway here is an even bigger one. So this size is more coarse object. If I raise this up, you'll see the contrast changes on more macroscopic level, okay? And if I raise this one towards the bottom, the finer details will get more contrast. You can see it better if I zoom in. All right, and what I can do is I can raise each of these as we go, and we can see what the effect is, okay? That doesn't have much of an effect on this, but this one had more of an effect. And then this one, nope. Okay, so I'm going to raise these two, and that's contrast in the L channel only. I'm not going to use this for the color channel. I can also create edges with this, but I'm not going to. Last detail, I love these leaves, but boy, I wish they looked a little bit brighter. There's a nice tool for doing that. It's called color zones. I can select the color and affect its lightness or its saturation based on its hue. So I'm going to select these little units here and bring this up so that I get a little more saturation on those leaves. Oh, that looks nice. And there we go. That was a process.
Oh, man.
Let's look at the before.
Can we see the original?
Yes, we can. Let's make a duplicate of this.
That was just a one-year college course condensed.
I've been using Darktable for about 3 years now.
Wow.
Okay, let's get rid of the history. It is way more powerful than what you saw tonight. I tried to just hit the highlights. Okay, we'll get rid of this intermediate one, and then we'll try and get these side by side so you can see them side by side.
I'm not so sure you can do the same stuff in Lightroom. I don't know. What do you
Well, it makes you think differently, but yeah, a lot of the things you can do exactly the same effect. You have to do it in a different way. All right, there they are side by
A lot of
side.
it I've been looking for stuff like that, and you have to go into Photoshop, because I used to do, size-based stuff like that.
Okay.
But, once I switched to Lightroom, I don't do it anymore, because I don't see any way to do it in Lightroom. So,
And I use those effects to achieve my artistic style. I mean, you certainly wouldn't want to just use the same thing over again. You do your own thing, but this, I just wanted to show what Darktable is capable of. Everything that Darktable does is internally in 16-bit precision floating point math. So as it expands things, you get these really nice professional transitions. And I do all my work from my camera to my printer in Adobe RGB. I use a color correction spider, and that works with Darktable and Linux flawlessly, and it's really easy to.
Can you show us those two, one, blown up, one back and forth?
Would you send me those two images so I could use them in the next newsletter?
Sure.
Thank you.
So that's before, outstanding. You gotta get a model release though.
Looking at it now, I think the color's too hot and the block point's too high. So I'm going to quickly just make those two changes. All right. Yes, I'm happier with that. Okay.
Very nice.
What time is it?
8 o'clock?
Oh, 8 o'clock? Do I have time for a quick edit? I can do another one. I won't talk so much.
Okay.
Okay.
Sunset.
You guys have attention for it?
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, I just watch you do it. So.
Okay. Pick one.
Sunset now.
Sunset. This sunrise?
Sunrise, yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
The ocean? There's no ocean.
Sunrise.
All right, this was our last day in England. We stayed at a B&B next to a place where my wife read all these stories in a romance novel about people getting married just on the other side in Scotland because the age was younger, and young couples would go from England and go across the border and get married here. I guess it's like going to Vegas or something. That's right, yes. So that's where our B&B was like a quarter mile from it. Of course, I didn't know any of this stuff, but the person who had the B&B and my wife talked about it and enjoyed it. Okay, let's see. First thing we're going to do, we got to do something about these shadows, right? I mean, this is horrible. And the bright parts are too bright too. I mean, it looks like we've blown out the sky there. So, thank goodness I shot this with dual ISO. And sorry about the mic, I'm not used to it. We're going to use the tone mapping again. Anyway, I'll talk less and work faster. What the heck did I do? That was weird. I hit this button here, I
I got
guess.
some ideas of it.
All right. I don't have a pair of glasses that are for this length. Like my glasses are either for driving or for the distance from my computer to my eyes. You know, one little word of wisdom I like to live by is don't use any one tool to do everything. Don't try and use any shadow and highlight to bring your shadows all the way up or anything like that. You end up with results that are not happy. I can use this same tool to control not just my shadows but my highlights, but my settings might be slightly differently. So instead of changing these sliders over here and including this highlighted area, I'm going to go ahead and just make a second instance. Sorry, I don't know what I touched there, and I can't see very well, so I'm just going to start over on this one. All right, my version of shadows and highlights. 3-pixel color map, and I'm going to do this reverse color thing, reverse brightness trick with the low pass filter reverse color trick, lightness. There we go. All right. And then we'll apply that with the overlay filter and attenuate it. All right, let's see where we started. Not looking too bad. It really is ridiculously green there, so that's not too far out of line. I, in the interest of time, am not going to spend a lot of time on these colors. Can someone read those two numbers to me? This-
One, and minus 9 and 10.
Minus 9 and 10?
Yeah.
All right, so we're off on the yellow quite a bit, aren't we?
I'd say so.
Minus 5 and 20. Minus 6 and 17.
All right, rock and roll. Let's do it. I'm sure there's a hotkey for refresh the film strip there, but I don't know it, so whatever. All right, here we are starting again. We're going to do those low pass filters based on size.
And does Darktable have pretty good support? Is it updated a lot? Or?
Oh yeah, no, it's good. It's the worldwide repository for this program. Like as far as open source goes.
Okay.
Right. There were numerous projects before, like 10 years ago. There were probably 6 projects, and they've all gone into Darktable. So it's just become the standard for open source image processing. So in terms of open source software, it's going to have the largest user base, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Does it have the database type functions that Lightroom has?
You know, it has so much craziness. I'm not sure. I know that seems like a cheap answer. It's got scripting support, so you can write stuff for it. Okay, you can automate tasks. You can make it intelligent the way it does things. It supports Lua, which is a scripting language. And if you took the time to learn Lua, the sky's the limit.
Does it have image organizational abilities like Lightroom?
It has keywords, geotagging, color, and rating support, things like that.
Is it, when you edit an image, is it actually,
It's non-destructive.
it's non-destructive?
It has a sidecar XMP file that supports Lightroom. You can take Lightroom files and open them in Darktable. That's cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it supports XMP files that are written by cameras for a sidecar XMP file for like deflickering, things like that. Plus it has Lua support, so you can write your own scripts and you can make it do whatever you want. You can hook it up to MySQL or anything and do all sorts of crazy stuff. It'll tether to your camera. You can have it do scripts based on movement or sound. It's numerous capabilities. All right, we'll get our edges down here. We're getting close, you guys. All right, this is based on the chromacity channel. I'm going to apply color. I don't want to oversaturate some of them, so like this guy's not going to get any, see? Because it's not going to get blown out. But some of this foliage that's darker will get some more color. I'm just going to bring it in a little bit though, not too much. And then I'm going to color up the whole image using a Gaussian blur so I don't introduce noise. Final contrast. All right, what do you think?
That the second to the last thing you did was really,
You like that better?
no, I thought that was a huge improvement.
Oh, adding the color at the end?
Yeah.
You know why it works? Because I did all that stuff beforehand. If I didn't, when I pump the color, it just looks stupid. It looks like you're on a psychedelic ride or something.
A lot cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Things go out of gamut, other things aren't bright enough. You got to do all that work beforehand, and then when you add the color, it comes out nice. All right, I did a screencast of this. I'm turning it off right now.